Hi, it's Saturday, August 16th, and we're tracking Hurricane Erin north of the Caribbean islands this morning. You can see the system staying north of the northern Leeward Islands as now a powerful Category 5 hurricane. The system has undergone a very impressive rate of rapid intensification, where it was just a Category 1 hurricane, minimal hurricane, yesterday afternoon. And with recon data this morning, it is now estimated to have winds of 160 miles per hour, making it a Category 5 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale. And we're certainly feeling good right now in the northern Caribbean islands. We do still have some outer bands to deal with from the system, and these will have tropical storm force winds and heavy rainfall, which could lead to some flooding issues, especially in mountainous terrain like in Puerto Rico. But all things considered, we're feeling good right now as the core of this system tracks north of you all. This is the recon data. I'll go through some of this data with you over the past several hours. It's just been incredible to watch. This was the first recon plane we had go in there overnight. This was a NOAA plane showing you the initial pressure being 951 millibars when the plane first got there, and it tanked through the mission down to 927 millibars. And an Air Force plane that just left the storm a little bit ago saw the pressure continue to fall down to around 919 millibars, and we've seen to start leveling off, around 919 millibars. There's a couple reasons why we may be leveling off right now. It may just be that the system is reaching its maximum potential intensity of source for this part of the Atlantic. I think the more likely thing is that we are likely seeing a little bit of increased vertical shear impacting the vortex of the hurricane. If you look at some of the clouds here north of the storm, you'll see that we do have some cloud elements pushing to the south. And this is because we have a little bit of a displacement of the 200 millibar flow. If I go here where we are now, go to Saturday afternoon, you can see we have the center of the area of high pressure just northwest of where Hurricane Erin is, and it's a little displaced from the center of the storm. So being on this east side, there's a little bit of northerly flow being impinged upon the vortex. And we can see the impact of this if we look at the colored infrared imagery, which I can go to here. You can see at the beginning of this dark gray area, the CDO, centralness overcast, was pretty symmetric over the, or surrounding rather, the eye of the hurricane. But as we go to now, we've seen it become a little bit more lopsided, more fat on the south side, more thin on the north side. This is a usual impact of northerly shear like this. And this is likely causing the system to level off at this point. Now, we have seen some wobbles in the track, like I talked about, would be possible. You can see in this NOAA mission that we had overnight that we were at one point losing latitude. We have now begun to gain latitude again, but this does cause some problems because we've now gained less latitude than models had anticipated by this point. And so this does favor a little bit the western end of the track guidance envelope that I showed you yesterday. Now, we're still not expecting a direct landfall in Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. That's not where I'm going with this, but I do think that with this more westward track and more southern position this morning, we are more likely now to see some outer band impacts in these islands going forward, and that may lead to tropical storm force winds and heavy rainfall, much like what we're experiencing in the northern Caribbean today. And going forward beyond that point, the track forecast has shifted a little bit. We've gotten a little bit more confident in the track going forward between the US and Bermuda. The good news is here for anyone wondering about has things changed along the US East Coast. The good thing is, no, things have not changed. We're not expecting a direct landfall along the US coast. This pattern seems pretty locked in by now, and we are not going to really see a direct landfall here from this system. Though something to keep in mind, this is very important as well for Bermuda, because we have turned it a little bit further west from the island today, especially in the GFS run. You can see that compared to where it was yesterday, which was more around here, we have trended west further away from the island. But one thing about this system as it comes north, it's going to be growing in size, and that's partially because of eyewall replacement cycles that are likely to occur with this system with time. Now, right now, we don't seem to be going into the process of an eyewall replacement cycle. We don't really see any evidence of that on the recon data. If we were going into that, you would see double wind maximas, double peaks in the maximum wind values here in both of these data sets, and we really do not see that happening at this point. So we're likely just being impacted by shear, not really weakening from an hour replacement cycle. But you normally expect an hour replacement cycle to occur, especially at this high of an intensity right now where the hurricane is by this point. And through that process, what happens is the storm's winds do come down. That can often be a misleading thing because they come down because the storm is growing inside. It takes up a larger surface area overall. So you end up getting a larger hurricane overall. I could show you this best if we look at the HAFS model big view of the storm. This is going to show you the wind field of the system as we go throughout the next few days. You can see right now, as of this afternoon, it's a pretty compact wind field. You can fit most of this into Hispaniola, for example. But as we go in time, as the structure evolves with this hurricane, it gains size. You can see we have an expansion of the tropical storm force wind field, likely than while seeing an upcoming hour replacement cycle from this current peak intensity. Again, with that more southerly initial start, that may put it a little bit close to these Turks and Caicos Islands, and you could get some increased risk of tropical storm force winds because of that. But it doesn't just stop there. We continue to see the storm rise, and by the point that we're east of the US, using my Hispaniola comparison again, you can now fit the entirety of Hispaniola within the wind field of this hurricane. And so this is a very significant increase in size, and is going to be very important going forward that we don't just focus on the exact point of where the system's center may go. For example, I'll show you the 5-day forecast cone here. I'm going to speak mainly to Bermuda here. You can see in this forecast track, it's forecast to go well west of the island. You are still in the forecast cone, so it's possible that the eye of the storm does get rather close to the island. But let's pretend here that we know the forecast track is going here in the middle, far west of the island. That does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that you're getting away without any impacts. If we go back to this HAFS model, here's Bermuda, and as the system tracks towards the east and northeast, you see the tropical storm force wind field is getting rather close to Bermuda, and this would likely be a case where we have a tropical storm warning in effect for the island. And especially on this eastern side, it's going to be a fatter side. It's the typical case of these hurricanes is that the eastern side is fatter, so you don't need the system to be nearly as close to Bermuda to get impacts as compared to the US. To get tropical storm force winds in the US, we have to come pretty far west, and that seems unlikely by this point. Although I would rule out maybe some increased gusts along the exact coast of North Carolina and the mid-Atlantic and the northeast. But I think for Bermuda, the chance of tropical storm force winds are certainly increasing with time as the system tracks northeast. And this is shown well in the probability of tropical storm force winds, where it is now increased to a 30 to 40% chance for the island of Bermuda, and this will most certainly continue to increase as we go in time. And we've also seen a subtle increase as well for the Turks and Caicos Islands, matching that southward shift that we've seen over the past day. You can see here 10 to 20% chance of tropical storm force winds, a little bit up from yesterday, and we'll see if that does increase with time. Hopefully we don't get too many adverse impacts there, but again, with that southward shift, it may be a little bit closer to the Turks and Caicos Islands. And with rainfall with this system in the northern Caribbean, we could be seeing an additional couple of inches of rain with isolated spots, especially in mountainous terrain, 4 to 6 inches of rain. And in Turks and Caicos, there's more uncertainty with this hatched area that you see here, but a general south of 1 to 3 inches of rain can be expected across those islands as the system does track through. And again, some of those outer rain bands may bring some tropical storm force winds to the islands. There's also going to be a risk on the U.S. East Coast of high rip currents. You can see as the system tracks north, as it also gains size, it's going to be churning up the water over a great area in the Western Atlantic, and the waters are going to be very angry, for lack of a better term, in the Western Atlantic. That's going to cause high rip current risk along the entire U.S. East Coast. And so make sure staying tuned to your local weather office and National Hurricane Center, as they do have a new product this year showing you the rip current risk along the entire U.S. coast. Now, for now, this weekend, not too bad because the system is still quite small and far away from the coast. But I imagine as we go through time, we're going to see a lot of red coloring showing up here along the east coast, showing a high risk of rip currents. And so just stay safe and be aware if you are heading to the beach this upcoming week. The final thing I want to talk about is the forecast beyond 5 days, as we are going to be seeing the system transition likely into a very powerful non-tropical cyclone as it tracks northeast towards Atlantic Canada. The half mile does not go out quite that far, but you can see if we go to the southeast Canada view from the GFS, this is by Thursday and Friday. By this point, the system is now moving north of the Gulf Stream, so it's not going to be dealing with too many tropical processes by this point. It's going to be transitioning into an extratropical cyclone. And what's going to happen is the wind field is going to gain size a ton, even more than what it is east of the United States. And so that's going to mean that we're going to have a very large and powerful wind field with this extratropical cyclone. Now, the hope is that we can keep this center of the storm offshore enough of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland especially, where we avoid the strongest winds. You can see in that purple, that's 50 knot winds or higher near the center of what would be Erin by that point. Though hopefully we do still get some rainfall here across Newfoundland. I believe we do need some rainfall with some wildfires that we've had across there. So hopefully we get that kind of a Goldilocks scenario where we don't get the strongest impacts of the center of the storm, but we get some rainfall to deal with some of the drought there and deal with some of the wildfires we've had take place in Newfoundland. But we are expecting a strong, powerful extratropical cyclone out of Erin, tracking northeast very close to southeast Canada as we head into the latter half of this week and into next weekend. So be aware of that, especially if you're on the southeast coast of Newfoundland, as it could get pretty nasty there as we head into your Friday and into the beginning part of next weekend. That's all that I've got for now. I'll leave you with a 5-day forecast again from the National Hurricane Center. Stay safe in the Caribbean islands as the system continues tracking through, and I'll have more videos on this as it progresses throughout the Western Atlantic. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.